I love WWE. For real. My childhood would not have been the same without Hulk Hogan telling me to eat my vitamins, say my prayers, and believe that Hulkamania will last forever. Not just him though. If I didn't have a Ted DiBiase or a Bobby Heenan to hate and cheer against, I don't think I would enjoy wrestling as much as I do today. But for every great decision like Hulk Hogan or Randy Savage as champion, there has to be a trade-off. Sometimes something may look wonderful on paper or seem like a really great idea, but in reality it's a nightmare. And that's compacted when it's your world champion. I'm Walt, the most gangster nerd on YouTube, and these are 10 of the worst WWE champions of all time. Ivan Koloff, the man who ended Bruno's historic 7-year-long championship reign. Ivan Koloff is remembered fondly and respected highly. The reason he finds his way onto this list is simple. No one wanted him as champion. Flashback in time to January 18th, 1971. Ivan defeats Bruno in Madison Square Garden in front of a sellout crowd. The immediate crowd reaction? Dead silence. Bruno even remarked at the time he thought he had busted his eardrums due to the silence of the crowd. Now, it was worth noting that Ivan was booked as a transitional champion, as WWF during this period booked babyface champions such as Bruno and Pedro Morales. But when you factor in the lack of enthusiasm from fans, along with the fact that he was champ for a grand total of 3 weeks, well, it is what it is. Stan Stasiak. Much like the before-mentioned Ivan Koloff, Stan Stasiak was a transitional champion and is fondly remembered and well-respected within the industry. Unfortunately, he's still on this list. Enjoying a lengthy title run of 8 days, he would defeat Pedro Morales on December 1st, 1973, in what some would consider a very weak finish. Pedro Morales would hit a belly-to-back suplex on Stasiak and in the process pin himself. As the ref goes for the 3 count, Stasiak would lift his right shoulder while Pedro would remain on his back. He would then turn around and drop the title to Bruno, who would go on to enjoy a 4-year-long second run with the title. Bob Backlund. Bob Backlund is one of the all-time greats. His almost 6-year run as champion starting in 1978 is legendary, and is totally not why he is on this list. No, what landed him on this list was his outrageous 3-day run as champion in 1994. After turning heel and seemingly snapped, he would terrorize the WWF with his incredibly intimidating cross-face chicken wing. This would culminate in him defeating Bret Hart and regaining the title after 11 years. What would take away from all this was that it was little more than a transitional title reign, capped off with a 20-second squash match, seeing him defeated by Diesel. Buddy Rogers. The original Nature Boy, Buddy Rogers is a legendary wrestler and is one of the biggest stars in the beginning of the television era of wrestling. He is in fact the first wrestler to be both an NWA and WWF World Champion, defeating Pat O'Connor for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship in 1961. And that's really where the pleasantries end. Buddy Rogers as NWA champion was notorious for refusing to leave the northeastern WWF territory and would be one of the driving voices behind Vincent James McMahon's decision to withdraw the WWF from the NWA. Along with that, Buddy Rogers would deliberately ignore finishes, whether he was supposed to go over or not. This would get him in a lot of trouble over the years, leading to Karl Gotch snapping his wrist and Killer Kowalski breaking his leg in a shoot during an actual match. The NWA would grow tired of Buddy Rogers, threatening to strip him of his $20,000 deposit on the NWA title, and then booked him to lose a single-round match against Lou Thesz, something unfathomable at the time. He would become the very first WWF champion, winning an imaginary tournament in Brazil. However, he was far from past his negative tendencies. Bruno Sammartino in an interview remarked on how lazy Buddy was in the ring. Back in the 60s, when a 60-minute main event match was very much the norm, Buddy would refuse to go past 15 minutes, even refusing to go past 2 minutes in Madison Square Garden when he dropped the title back to Bruno. Few wrestlers have enjoyed such a negative reputation, coupled with deliberate disrespect, but that's what you have to do in order to make it on this list. The Great Khali. I doubt there's ever been a worse big man in the history of professional wrestling. The Great Khali would show up in April of 2006, attacking The Undertaker, and what should have been a new monster heel was soon revealed to be a giant waste. The Great Khali would lumber around, unable to keep a quick pace or have a long match. His ring work was horrid and hard to watch, and as far as a promo goes, well, he wasn't allowed anywhere near a mic. But even in light of all of this, due to his size, the Great Khali was booked as world champion. And even if that wasn't bad enough, because of him, we still have the everlasting legacy of the Punjabi prison match. A match so convoluted it's too stupid to make fun of. The Ultimate Warrior. Jim Hellwig's abilities, or lack thereof, are well documented. He was given a huge push when he got to the WWF, with a huge physique that was unmatched, with more muscles packed in per square inch than any wrestler ever before. The Ultimate Warrior had an awesome intro, sprinting to the ring, shaking the ropes, and that was about it, as the man couldn't work, couldn't go, and couldn't cut a coherent promo. However, if working dangerously were a skill, Warrior would be one of the all-time greats, as the Ultimate Warrior was known for working, or well, not knowing how to work. And then pairing that up with a poor attitude, he would push his luck against others, hurting Bobby Heenan and Hercules Hernandez, but also having that luck pushed back, as the legendary Andre the Giant once cold-cocked him during a match after advising him not to be so stiff, and the late but great Rick Rude infamously poured a 500-gallon drum of ass whoop all over him that directly resulted from Warrior not having a clue how to work in the ring. But all that aside, for some reason, on April 1st, 1990, the Ultimate Warrior would beat Hulk Hogan for the world title. In retrospect, the WWF may have booked the single greatest April Fool's joke in history. Unfortunately for the fans, we would have to endure the punchline, as Warrior would retain the title until the beginning of '91 before finally losing it to Sergeant Slaughter. Psycho Sid. Psycho Sid does get a bad rap. Unfortunately, if it wasn't for his mishaps, he may be in danger of being completely forgettable. Oddly enough, he's not just a one-time WWF champion, but is in fact two-time WWF champion. I know, I couldn't recall that either. Sid may have had the look and the size, but his in-ring work left something to be desired. Along with that, he had the charisma of a fallen tree limb, and his promos. Google one, they're hilarious. Diesel. 1995 was a rough year for professional wrestling, and even rougher for WWE than WWF. Some speculate that Diesel being champion for most of that year may be the reason why. Allegedly holding the record for lowest drawing WWF champion of all time, Diesel's less than impressive moveset, coupled with a lack of decent competition, may have hindered his reign before it even really had a chance. Some argue the best part of his run as champ was his loss at Survivor Series to Bret Hart when he dropped the title, and it's kinda hard to argue that point. Simply think of another memorable Diesel match. Exactly. Kane. The most pointless title run on this list, and that is truly saying something. He won it on a Sunday night, and then the next night lost the title back to the same person he beat the night before. God, WWE, fail. Vince McMahon. For similar reasons as Kane, but with having absolutely no business holding the title in the first place, Vince would win the title from Triple H on September 16th, 1999 on an episode of SmackDown. The match had constant outside interference, most notably from Steve Austin, and then the following Raw, Vince vacated the title. All sounds fair enough, assuming the title was slowly making its way to someone else. Nope, Triple H regained the title at Unforgiven on September 26th, so really what was the point of any of this? And that is the list. Do you love how right I am? Do you hate how wrong you are? Tell me about it in the comments. I'm Walt, the most gangsta nerd on YouTube, and I'll see you soon enough.